Most of the 11 eyeshadow palettes that I own are pretty new within the last year to maybe 2 years, but this one is probably going on 3 years. So this is going to be my modified Pan That Palette introduction for 2024. During this introduction video, I'm going to tell you why this is a modified Pan That Palette, and maybe that will inspire you to use something in your collection that might be going past its prime. And I'm also going to introduce you to the other 10 palettes that I own in conjunction with this one. A normal Pan That palette is a palette where you have this palette and you try to hit pan on as many shades as possible. But after doing Pan That palette for the past several years, I have kind of gotten into this panning fatigue, especially with a Pan That palette as it as normally written by the creator. I thought to myself, how can I embrace the Pan That palette in its core, the essence of Pan That palette, which is to use things up that you aren't using very much. And I wanted to do that with this palette since it is the oldest one that I own. And to be honest, ABH palettes are pretty easy to pan because the mattes are pretty powdery and it's pretty easy to hit pan on these things. What I decided to do in the spirit of my panning fatigue and not really wanting to like pan just to pan sort of thing, I'm going to tweak Pan That palette to fit me and my makeup collection and my makeup goals, which is to use the makeup that I have. And if I don't use it up, that's okay. I would love for you to check out the video I have linked below on my recent reflections of project panning and why I've kind of come to this decision for myself. And maybe that will inspire you. Let me know in the comments below if that is very helpful for you. So ultimately, I want to use these 10 palettes. I want to work on Norvina, but I also want to work and use these 10. They're beautiful, and I don't want them to sit there on the shelf and collect dust. So here is my plan. Step one is to pick one shade in this palette to focus on for each of the 12 months. Now there are 14 shades, and here is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to count this shade base because that is a very easy shade for me to use. I'm going to use that every day to set my eyelids, and I have not much doubt in my mind that I'll be able to use that shade up this year. I'm also not going to focus on this shade Soul because it scares me, and I will use it, but I don't want it to be my focus shade. And when I say focus shade, my goal in a focus shade is to be able to use that shade 20 times in the month. And that's going to free me up to be able to use the other 10 palettes that I have, which is wonderful. Now, in order to achieve my goal of using this Norvina palette as much as possible, I am going to use it solely for 1 week out of each month. So for 1 week, however many times I wear makeup for that week, this is the only thing that I'm going to use. And I love that because this palette is so great for all year long. There are lots of springy colors with the pinks and the purples, but also it's very fall-like as well. So I can definitely see myself sort of splitting this in half and using this half for the first 6 months and really focusing on that, and then using this half for the second 6 months and focusing on that. I mean, there's just endless possibilities with this color story, and that is part of the reason why I love it, and I don't want for it to go bad. The other reason why I love this palette so much are the shimmers. Wow, oh wow. They are so soft and creamy, and even still, even though this palette is, almost 3 years old, just a slight touch in this because they're so soft and they have so much pigmentation and light reflectiveness, and it's just really a wonderful palette to use. So I don't want it to go bad. So again, step one is for me to pick a shade that's going to be my focus shade aside from these two. Step two is going to be to accompany that with my other 10 palettes. And step three is going to be to focus on this palette only for 1 week out of the year, out of each month. And that will probably be like the middle week. So for 2 weeks, I'll be using all my other pretty things. I'll focus on this one for week 3. And then the remainder of the month, I will continue to use my other palettes. So let me introduce you to the other palettes, and then we will pick the focus shade for the month at random so that I don't cheat. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. I am aware that I really like sort of neutral palettes with some splashes of color, so that's totally okay with me. I have the NARS Summer Unrated palette, and this palette is great for all year long. I'm using it today. And I have this one in my project Level Up. I am going to continue that project. I'm trying to hit pan on 3 shades, and that would be this one, and this one. And then I have to use every other shade 3 times, and I'm almost to that goal. I haven't hit any pans yet, but I've almost used every shade 3 times. Level 2 in Project Level Up is my Huda Rose Quartz palette. I have to use every shade 2 times and hit 2 pans. I have already hit 1 pan, and I'm almost at my goal of using every shade 2 times. Love this palette, and it's also another one like Norvina where I can use this all year long and be able to have like some soft springy colors or maybe some warm rosy colors. Love that one, and it's going to pair nicely with Norvina. I've already used and hit goal on my level 1 for Project Level Up, so I'm focusing on 2 and 3. I also have the Persona Identity palette, which is a cool toned palette that is great for fall and winter time, and I really love this one, but I don't want to pigeonhole it into fall and winter. I want to be able to use it in the spring and summer too. So I'm trying to like open my mind to that and definitely get some more use out of it, because this palette is really, really special in its shimmer formula. The mattes are really, really blendable and very easy to use, and they're very pigmented. My most favorite palette is ABH Cosmos, and this is a fairly new palette that I got this year. It's my effort to branch out into some color, and boy oh boy do I love using this palette so much. I get lots of really neat looks, and I have created so many shorts using this thing, and I know that I've only scratched the surface as to what it can do. Again, another one that's great for fall, summer, all year long. This one is a little dusty because I haven't used it. It's my Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I haven't used this in a while, and I love this palette so much too. I think I'm pigeonholed it into spring and summer because of its peach scent, but really look at that. This is fall vibes all over the place. So I definitely want to be able to use this all year long and accompany it with some of the shades from Norvina. New to me in 2023 also is my Huda Naughty Nude palette, which I feel like is a really great fall palette, but with some of these pinky purples, I think that it would go great all year long. So again, just really wanting to get lots of good use out of this one because I love the color story and I find it very complimentary to my green eyes. Now, something that's going to take a real big stretch for me to not pigeonhole into a season is my ABH Rose Metals palette. This is fall in a palette. And I love it so much. I was so inspired by this in the fall that I created so many shorts just inspired by the leaves outside in nature. I'd love for you to check out some of those. I'm trying to get to the point where I can create like a playlist of the shorts when I do a lot like this one focused on one palette. So I'm really going to try to get that done. So I am going to have a hard time using this outside of fall, but maybe it's like summertime with some of these orangey bronze shades. Maybe I will be inspired for a different season with that one. I also have the ColourPop Lust for Dusk palette. And this palette is, I think, another good all year long palette with the oranges and the purples and, you know, some cooler tones down here. My Huda Nude palette is, again, to me, very Valentine's-y, very like February, but I need to say to myself, I can use this all year long. This is a really great berry toned palette, again, that I think complements my green eyes. And these little flaky glitter, I don't know what you call these, the glittery flaky shades have so much pigmentation and reflection on them that it's going to go so nicely with Norvina, and I'm going to be able to create some really sparkly looks. And my last palette is the Tarte Maneater palette. And this one at first glance might seem really fall-like. As I discovered this fall, there's a lot of pinks and purples in here, and I will be able to do a lot with this in the springtime. So again, this may be one where I focus on part of the palette for the first half of the year, and then the other half of the year I can be more inspired by the, you know, the oranges and the browns and the golden tones, and it's gonna go really nicely again with my Norvina palette. I got finished with my video talking about Norvina and totally forgot to choose my random color focus shade for the month of January. So I did that. I randomized number 1 through 12 because I'm not going to focus on these two. They're just gonna kind of, this one will come naturally, this one not so much. And so 1 through 12 randomly generated Dazzling, and I am wearing that today, and it is such a pretty color. I'm so excited that that is the focus shade for the month of January, and I'm planning on using that one 20 times, and I will keep track of it on my tape on the front of the palette. So I cannot wait to share this journey with you of my modified Pan That palette. My goal is not to hit pan on every shade. My goal is to use it and to enjoy using it and to use it in conjunction with these other palettes that I have, so that nothing sits there and collects dust and goes to waste. I know that I'm not going to use this palette all the way up, and that's okay. But what's not okay is me not using it at all. So let's dive into this journey together, and maybe you've decided that a modified Pan That palette is the way to go for you. Maybe you're having, you know, Pan That palette burnout like I did. And the goal that for me for 2024 is to make sure that project panning fits me and fits my makeup collection and my makeup goals. And I encourage you to embrace that freedom and use your makeup while trying to achieve small goals. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.